Don't ask me to label myself. Don't ask me to put me in a category so I can finally be figured out. That's what gives me stress and has me chasing my tail endlessly. Little me feels like an imposter because she internalized the reactions of others to her nature. She took it as she didn't belong anywhere and wasn't good enough. We took on these reactions, giving them labels and then feeling rebellious about them because we thought that they might just be true. But to free us now, I realize I don't need to be labeled at all, and where others do it to me is none of my business. To be is to be limitless, to be presence, to live and breathe in the moment, staying true to what you are now. You ask me who I am, I say here. Don't ask me to explain what words can't paint. It's to be experienced, to be known. So when you ask me who I am right here. That's something that I wrote when I had a little epiphany. I was thinking about my anxiety because I've battled with anxiety a ton in my life. I don't remember a time in my life before, maybe before I moved to Australia, I think. I wasn't really anxious before that. But when I moved here, I was very anxious after that point on. And I got to maybe the age of 25 before I didn't really feel anxiety in that way anymore. Now when I get anxiety, it's kind of situational. It's like, it makes sense to be anxious for me. But before that, it was a perpetual state of anxiety. And I knew it was irrational. A lot of the feelings that I would get for certain situations is because I was really, really traumatized and I was working through all those things, and you can't force and push healing. But anyway, I was thinking about how I have been perpetually anxious since the age of probably like 7 or 8 or something. And I thought, what has contributed to that? And many things came to mind. But then I also just thought about my own relationship to myself. I thought about how I saw myself and then how I came to the conclusion of seeing myself like that. And it's because we often build our sense of self off of the reactions of other people, off the reactions of our environment, the response to how we take up space and express ourselves. And that sort of infers who you are as a person. You're a funny person because people seem to laugh at the things you say, whether you were intentionally making jokes or not. You are quirky because people keep telling you that your style is eclectic and you talk about things that no one really thinks about or would ever say out loud, you know, or because you're a bit neurodivergent and people seem to find that really fun or quirky and interesting, because that's a label people like to use for neurodivergent people. But yeah, it made me think about that. And I went, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not mad at the world for how I perceive myself. I was just reacting to how I was being received, as we all are. And I noticed that a lot of labels had been put on me that were some, I guess all of them compiled together don't make a lot of sense, but people thought that I was weird. People thought that, yeah, I was a bit odd or hard to figure out, mysterious, but at the same time, what they had known or what they were finding out, like, I think seemed to entertain people half the time, but then also make people, you know, kind of fear me a little bit, but not in like a way where, oh my God, she's scary, like we better stay away from her because that's evil or that's like dangerous. I just think scary in a sense where you don't really know how to react, you don't know what to do. And yeah, also some people have just seen me as like incredibly normal or what's the word, not chill, but yeah, like a normie, you know, like I think that's usually people that I have worked with when I used to not work for myself. I would have this work persona where I would be very blank, you know, a canvas or a mirror even. I would just project what people were giving me back to them. And my personality was not one that had like a strong definition. You just would have thought like I was the kind of person that went home, watched a bit of TV, talked to your loved ones, and then went to bed, and that's about it. You wouldn't have thought that I really did much else, because that was kind of the vibe that I was giving off. So I think I've given people those kinds of vibes, unless they know me really well and they realize more of my personality and the layers to it. And so that kind of made me have a very interesting view of self where I thought I didn't have much of an identity or much of an ego. Uh, and maybe for my astrology peoples out there, I have a 12th house sun and a 12th house Saturn as well. So, sun and the ego being in the 12th house can make you have a foggy sense of self, and it can make you feel like you lack an ego. And only in key moments do you have more of a solid ego, because it will suddenly materialize, but then it will sort of dissipate and fizzle away. It's like other people can see you clearer than you can see yourself sometimes. And so I would look to other people to tell me who I was based off of how they would respond or what they would have to say about me to my face, or anything I heard down the grapevine from other people. And so I'd always get these different messages, but my brain would obviously pay the most attention to negative things. And so I felt like people thought that I was too much when I had expressed myself. They thought maybe I was like too fiery or too passionate, too loud, really opinionated. All these things I learned like quite young not to be, especially if you're a woman, girl, whatever. You really, it's not the best to be that way, because people then, oh, you have a lot to say, or like you're a bit much. So I learned to be like demure or whatever, and more muted, toned down, and just receptive instead of assertive in an environment like I naturally am. I am reserved when you don't know me too much, and I love to observe, but that doesn't mean that I don't have my own sense of self. It just doesn't come out as strongly sometimes when you meet me initially. I'll be friendly, but I won't be like, oh, like the bubbliest, most, jovial person around. But when you know me more, I'm a lot more playful and just silly and totally unserious. And then a bit nuts, not just in energy, but just in some of the shit that'll come out of my mouth. But anyway, yeah, and I just thought I have all these labels, I guess just these concepts, not so much like a definitive label where I'm like, oh, I'm the weird kid, or I'm the loud one, or something like that. It was just like, I just know I shouldn't express myself. I should have shame for wanting to use my voice. I should have shame for expressing myself through my body. I should have shame for wanting to dress a certain way or liking certain things and being proud about them, because people find that weird, or people think that that's wrong and I've been demonized for it in whatever, culturally. Maybe there's certain things that if you grew up religious, then there's certain things that you probably weren't allowed to be around. And I grew up partially religious at the start of my life. So there was also probably that influenced some things at an early age that I don't seem to take account now, because it was so long ago and it was so formative. But I think that plays into certain things sometimes. I think I have light bits of religious conditioning, probably. But anyway, I just have always struggled with feeling like I need to be a certain way. And I think that's probably a struggle everybody deals with, especially women, especially when you're young. You end up getting resentful for it and you want to rebel. And I'm a very rebellious type of person, just naturally. I mean, ask anybody that knows me very well. And it was always a push and pull within me, because I was like, I want to be liked, I want to be loved, I want to be accepted and embraced, but I also so badly want to be myself. I so badly want to be able to say what I want to say and express myself however I want, even if other people think, oh, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't deliver it like that, I wouldn't wear that, I wanted to be able to do it. And I just thought, the people that I admired and looked to, I never really saw them get hate, or when they did, I didn't pay attention to it. And I thought, okay, well, when you're liked by everybody, you don't have any negativity. So let me be liked by everybody, and then I'll never experience any hate. And I grew up and realized that that's not true. The people you admire the most, they have haters. The people that do the craziest things in life and are the most admired and revered or celebrated still have people that hate them, still have people that think that they're stupid, silly, dumb, unremarkable. They have haters. It doesn't really matter. And when I realized that, it was very freeing. I went, oh my God, I don't need to fit in like that. I don't need to be the most agreeable. I don't need to placate everybody or my environment, my community. In fact, I should just rebel and go find my own community, or go off and make my own thing. And when I started doing that, it felt so relieving and so freeing. And I tell you, my body, I began to heal in other ways I didn't realize, because I had yearned for a type of healing that I couldn't seem to achieve through the normal means, through whatever, all the things that I was doing at the time. And then when I started going, I don't care to continue being palatable for people, then everything opened up. Yeah, I started pissing people off. Yeah, my throat chakra started getting active, and I started having fights with strangers, and I started having disagreements and arguments with anybody because I had a lot to say. And it was a transitionary period, and I remember telling my best friend especially, like, oh, today I had an argument with this strange random couple because he started mouthing off at her, and I inserted myself, because I had started activating something in me that was natural and innate, but it was going in overdrive because I had to take a second to adjust to this. And now I've evened out a little bit more, but I am a very expressive person, very expressive, and I have no problem telling people what I think or how I feel about a situation, but I don't believe that I need to convince everybody to think like me, and that's the difference. I just want to be able to be myself. But some people, when they are really, they're like that, or they see that you're like that, they go, okay, they feel emboldened enough to share their opinion, which is great, that's fine, it's a discussion. But then they're like, okay, but one of us has to win, one of us has to now convince the other that what they believe is the truth. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm ranting, this is all over the place and everywhere. But I would find myself just having these arguments with people because it needed to come up out of me. And so when I removed these labels and I wasn't putting myself in a category and being like, okay, I'm the mysterious one that doesn't share things a lot, even though I never really tried to be like that. I think I leaned into that aspect of my personality because it felt safer, because it meant that people weren't seeing the more combative or opinionated or expressive parts of myself, fiery parts of myself. Or if I lent into the spiritual side of myself, because the group that I was hanging out with, we could talk about that, but I couldn't be silly, because that wasn't spiritual, to be silly and to make jokes about pop culture things. And because it was like, oh, well, you're not grounded in reality anymore, you care about things that are too silly, or you're hanging out with a lot of intellectuals and you're talking about worldly things. And I love those conversations, but again, you also can't always be serious with them. But then sometimes, you realize that humor, really good humor, is sign of a high IQ. And some of the smartest people I know are the funniest people as well. So I just had all these revelations, and I was like, you know what? Let me be able to be all parts of myself, no matter who I'm around. I don't have to force a certain thing out of myself if I'm not feeling it in that moment with people. But if I do, if that wants to come up, just because I've never spoken to this person in this way, doesn't mean that I'm not, I'm just suddenly going to go, oh, no, that part of me is a little too spicy for you, or that part of me is a little too out there and strange, or this part of me is a bit too meek and quiet, and you're used to me being loud and expressive. Because sometimes I had those dynamics where people thought I was like, oh, all the time, and there were times that I was like this, and when you don't categorize yourself, put yourself in a pigeonhole, label yourself, when you don't do that to you, because the world will do it to you, but when you don't do that to you, you're free. You're fucking free. You can do whatever you want. You can be whoever you want in any moment. Moving on, your mood shifts and you're feeling a little bit more tired, you don't have to be really loud. If you're just like, I don't want to make everybody laugh right now, I actually just want to listen, then you can do that. And if people have a problem with that, well, that's their issue, and just tell them sincerely, that's not my business. What you feel about me, you know what I mean, in that regard, please just keep it to yourself. Yeah, thanks. And I think when you realize that, it's less about, okay, who am I, and the ego, the identity, the personality of it all. It's less about that, and it's more just who am I in this moment. And you know what that is? That's just being present. And that's why in the thing that I wrote, I said, who am I? I'm here. I'm presence. Because that's all that I really can be. If I'm not obsessed with trying to figure out what personality type I am, or what my whole natal chart is, or what label my friend group gives, or my community or society gives me, if I'm not obsessed with those things and I don't give them so much value that it becomes my whole reason to live, then what am I? I'm just here. I'm just the witness. I'm just observing. I'm just here. That's all that I am. And you know what? That doesn't limit you. In fact, that gives you infinite. That gives you anything that you can be in any sort of moment. Yes, there'll be consistencies about your personality. That's not to say that you shouldn't care about the personality test or the astrology. I love to get down in a natal chart. In fact, I actually give them as a service, so check in the link below if you want me to read your chart or you want me to do a dream interpretation. Anyway, those things are important, but it's about balance, and it's knowing when to just let go of all that shit because it doesn't matter. It's not needed anymore. And in fact, at the end of the day, who am I? I'm here. I'm presence. And that means that I can be anything. It means I just honor this moment. If I have a lot of energy, I'll use it. If I want to hold back, I hold it back. If I want to do something different with it, if something is truly funny, I will laugh. My belly will explode with laughter. If something pisses me off, I'll screw my face up. If I don't agree with something, energetically, I'll let you know I don't always have to say it, but that doesn't limit you, because I find, and I've had these conversations with a couple people actually in the last couple of months where, you know, sometimes we can get obsessed with how we are and how we're seen, especially because we curate ourselves online, or we try to fit into certain groups and get ourselves into certain crowds, and you really play into the main personality traits of that crowd or that niche. And that doesn't mean that it's not you, but you have to realize that outside of that, you are also other things, and you can be other things, and we're multifaceted, and we have different all sorts of different interests. If you like paddleboarding, do you just become a paddleboarder in your full personality, or are you also somebody that likes to garden, or somebody that likes to bed rot or something, and you also do that? Do you know what I mean? Why would you want to be categorized, pigeonholed, and labeled to one thing, and you have to now just act like you're a character in a TV show, and you're supposed to just uphold that forever and on until you undergo a rebrand? Fuck a rebrand. You're just here. You're just presence. Be whoever the fuck that is now. If that means you change your style every day, if that means that you wear the same thing every day, it doesn't matter. It looks different for all of us. But when we're just here and we relax and we just be ourselves, we don't get so neurotic about who we are and how we're supposed to be. And that actually helps our self-esteem a lot once we give less of a shit about that. It helps us relax. It helps us breathe. It can help us in our work life, because you might not be doing it in your social life, but you might be really, really concerned with that sort of thing in a professional sense. And I'm not saying don't care, because you do need to care about certain things. You want to be respectful or professional, or, you know, look competent, but it's a balance. So if you find yourself struggling with labels or pigeonholed, being categorized, or you're just doing it to yourself because you're allowing the external to really penetrate you like that, maybe just meditate on this topic and be like, who am I? I'm just here. Whatever that is right now. Where am I in my body? How does that feel? What's my mood? That's who I am now. And I still try to act with love. I still try to be loving and considerate to myself and to others. And I'm not always going to do the best job. I'm not perfect, but I give myself grace. I'm here. And that's who I am. And so if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. It's something to be experienced to know. Thank you. I'll see you guys next time.